Hey loves, welcome. We're here to share loving vibrations and to encourage oneness. We shall deeply discuss about frequency, quantum physics, loving vibrations, energy, law of attraction. We hope you will share the love and spread it too.
My question is, I have trouble staying focused, and I need to learn how to stay focused so I can create more. I mean, I have a really good life, and
The tricky thing about that is, anytime you say, I have trouble doing something, we say, well then, good luck. I have a hard time doing something, and would you please help me? And we say, well, we could babble quite effectively, but it probably wouldn't do any good. So frame your question up in a downstream way.
Okay. The things that I really want to have in my life, I probably would have them if I wrote it down and kept concentrating on
All right,
it.
so what you're saying is, I have trouble focusing, but if I would write them down, it would be a stronger point of focus.
Yes,
So
that's what I'm saying.
I want to have a stronger point of focus. Therefore, I think I will take the things that are significant and important to me, and I'll write them down. Better statement, isn't it?
It's a much better statement.
We don't think that you have trouble focusing. We think that, and let us start in another place here. There is a myth that many people believe that says, if there's something really important that I want to accomplish, then I have to isolate it and make it more primary in my experience, and I have to do away with a lot of other things, and so that I can give my undivided attention to this thing. And we want to say, you can simultaneously, powerfully create on a myriad of subjects. You do not have to pick one thing. But what is important is that you don't contradict the things that you are creating. In other words, it's the talking in opposition to what you want, as you did when you said, I have trouble focusing, that scatters the energy and slows things down. So if you say, I want to focus on one thing so that I can create it more emphatically, we would rather say, you don't have to focus on one thing, but you do want to focus with an ear to the ground, so to speak, about whether your thoughts about it are upstream or downstream. And what you begin to notice as you care about the way you feel when you focus upon this subject or this subject or this subject is that focusing upon one subject will cause you to do better on another subject, because if you are reaching for the more positive thoughts, you just get so that you are pointed more positively relative to everything. And that's why very often a person can get focused upon one thing and focus upon it in a positive way and begin beating the drum of those more positive statements and get themselves tuned up because of that thing that they are focusing upon, and then almost all other things in their life begin to come into place. It's like if you have had the experience, or you know people who are falling in love, and it seems like they get into a sort of state of grace. When they fall in love, everything just starts going better for them, and it's because they picked one subject and focused upon it in a way that felt good. And then people erroneously believe that the magic to that was picking one subject, and we say no, it's picking a subject that causes you to flow downstream and holding your attention upon downstream kind of thoughts. We want you to realize that all of those things, all of those subjects that are important to you have already been created, and they're over there in your vibrational escrow. So anything that you can choose to focus upon that makes you feel good while you do it would allow you to receive. If all of you could get up there or down there or over there, wherever it is, on that massage table and experience the relaxation and pleasure that something like that physical touching gives you, that would be all you would need to do to let all of your hopes and dreams come true. In other words, if you could be distracted long enough from the day-to-day experiences, it's what our friend was saying when he says, on this cruise ship I'm doing pretty good, but I want to be sensitive so that when I get off of it and I'm less influenced to positive thoughts, that I'm able to hold myself in a better way. And we encourage you to pick anything. Esther chooses Kate, or she chooses Elsie, or she chooses the treehouse. She chooses different subjects that anytime she focuses upon it, it is 100% positive emotion that she feels, and she uses those as touchstones to tune her up to other things. So it really is not the hard work that we tend to make it sound. Your creations are complete. You just have to find something that makes you feel good. So let's come back to what we really want you to leave here understanding. We want you to feel yourself into focus, not think yourself into focus. Can you feel the difference? I'm focusing around an emotion rather than focusing around a thought. Because when you focus around an emotion and you achieve it, now every thought you think, you weigh it against that emotion and you can meld it into that better feeling emotion until before you know it, there's just hardly anything that you ever think about that you haven't worked it into the place of feeling good. And then, what begins happening in your life on all subjects in your life, people who are watching you will think that you have a magic wand or something as they begin to see things that you have barely begun to talk about beginning to manifest in your experience.
Oh, that sounds great.
Focus your emotion, and the thought will follow that. Now, does that sound odd to you? Because we've been telling you, think and feel. We've been telling you that when you think a thought, you have an emotional response to the thought. But when you realize that your source energy is thinking, but your source energy is thinking thoughts that only feel good. So when you think about your source energy or who you are, it's always a really good feeling state of being. And so when you're focusing upon coming into alignment with that feeling, now the thoughts just have to line right up.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. I'm interested in witnessing and
Meaning?
meaning being in a place where I can always allow. Meaning not getting caught up in going upstream and getting into stories. And when I listen to you, you talk about, I have to be right. And I just get into these stories and they kind of, I don't seem to be able to get back. I'm able to watch myself. I'm able now to say, I'm doing it, but I don't give it up.
So you're saying you're aware that you're pointed upstream, but you're so caught up in whatever the story is that you can't let go of it?
Yeah, I have to be right. I have to, and
well, when you croak, you'll stop that. In other words, and we say that to you with all seriousness and all lovingness at the same time, because we're wanting you, when you say, I want to be in the state of allowing all of the time, then we would say to anyone, then you pretty much have to croak. If it is your determination to always be in that total state of allowing, because, and the reason we say that to you is because it's not wrong for you to be in your physical form and to be evaluating your life experience. We so much want you to, rather than having a quest to always being in a state of allowing, we would much rather your quest be, I want to be sensitive to how I feel, and I want to be good enough at knowing how I feel and good enough at finding better feeling thoughts that I'm mostly pointed downstream. But we don't want you to be afraid of getting out there and mixing it up with conditions and circumstances for fear that you might get pointed upstream over something. Sometimes people will say, well, I've been reading the books and I've been doing the processes and my life is getting so much better and I'm in a place where I'm feeling mostly positive emotion. And then they'll say, but those people at work are so negative, or when I go to home for the holidays, I just get so sucked into all of that drama. And we say, we don't want you to feel fearful of the world at large. We want you to get so good at finding your balance that you're not worried about where you stand. We want you to be so comfortable and so confident that whatever comes your way, you'll be able to move with it and just feel the rhythm of it. And so, but what you said was, I always want to be in the state of allowing. And we say, you can't always be in the state of allowing as long as you're in this physical body, because if you are reaching for the the expansion which you are eternally reaching for, there is always going to be something that has the potential of pointing you upstream for a little bit. And we don't want you to fear being upstream. We want you to say, I am where I am, and what I'm feeling is valid, and I could be doing better with this thought, but there's nothing wrong with having an upstream thought. And from that vibrational state of being, you're much more likely to find a downstream thought than if you say, oh, I told myself I'm always going to think upstream, and what am I doing downstream, and what am I doing thinking upstream? What's wrong with me? Why am I not doing better? We want you to soften your intention to say, I want to be pointed downstream most of the time, but there's nothing wrong with upstream.
What I want is when I'm at work.
Do you hear that?
Yeah.
That's big, isn't it? Because if you are determined to always point downstream, then you must live a very limited life. You can only think about those things you've already worked out. And when new people come into your experience, you want to check them out really closely before you spend any amount of time with them, and never go out in public because God knows what's out there. But when you know that you know what to do, now you're all right everywhere you go.
Well, I guess I don't know that.
We know you don't know. That's why we're telling you.
And I'd like...
And it's why we're telling you in a strong way, because we can see how you listen to us or those like us for a while. You know that a positive thought's better than a negative thought. We've been crowing about this emotional scale, where on one end of it is the emotion that feels terrible, and on the other end of it is the emotion that feels wonderful. And we encourage you to move toward the end that feels good, where all the feelings of freedom and life are. And so we get how in your action orientation you would want to do the best for yourself. But here's what we're saying to you in very loud, emphatic terms. The very best thing you can do for yourself is be all right with yourself about where you are. I'm here and it's fine. Because if it's anything less than fine, you're pointed upstream and it can't get better. Where if it's fine, now you've let go of the oars, and now have you heard people talk about surrendering? And sometimes people have said to us, well, surrendering doesn't sound very much like deliberate creating. And we say, we know, that's why we started calling it allowing instead of deliberate creating. Because deliberate creating made you all just do the things you've been doing with your action and apply it to your vibration. Where allowing is more of a feeling stance, you see. Letting go of the oars is different than turning the boat around. The stream will turn it around if you let go of the oars.
Okay.
So you don't have to find a downstream thought. It's exhilarating when you do, but
I
you
don't let go of the oars.
You don't have to find the downstream thought. Just stop thinking the upstream thought. And so how do I stop thinking something that I'm thinking? By thinking something else, by changing the subject in your mind, by looking for some object of attention, or even better, by having a pocket full of things that you like to think about that are readily accessible. In other words, that's what we meant by carrying those touchstones with you, where if you find yourself in a situation where you know you're... Now, for some people, this sounds silly. How can a thought be so important? But when you are sensitive to thought and you realize that beating the drum of something activates it and takes you further and further and further, it is wonderful that you are aware in the early subtle stages of a thought that it's pointed upstream. So just picture letting go of those oars. You could even say, I'm thinking a thought that I really don't want to think, and I've decided not to think about this thought that I'm not going to think. And for a while, you're thinking about the thought that you're not going to think. I'm not going to think about you, you're thinking. I'm not going to think about you, I'm not going to think about you, but you're thinking about the thing you're not going to think about. And then you say, but after a while, you say, I'm not going to think about you, 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 I'm not going to think about you. And before you know it, you're thinking about what you're doing with your tongue, you're thinking about what you're doing with your mouth. Suddenly you're making funny sounds in your face. Sometimes your face is moving around. Sometimes you can talk through your nose in a funny way. In other words, distract yourself like you would a child, and before you know it, you've let go of the oars, and when you let go of the oars, you turn downstream. Okay. Good time for a segment of refreshment.